So it should be clarified why I even put this information up. Like you look at why I would have a secondary or tertiary channel when I barely even get views on my main channel at all. And I guess it could be harkened back to a lot of what Cliff High is trying to study, but I don't put myself in line with Cliff High. In fact, I feel that he's deviant himself. That he is he's fallen to the warlock way of doing things, and that they've infiltrated into how his data sets are being interpreted, and maybe even from the beginning, but in the sense of context, is that we've all been subjugated and we have all fallen to this power because we live within this toxic field, and that to prove that we are, in fact, the esoteric aspect, the few of us, right, are wanting, vying for, wishing, willing for a pure return, but knowing that we are part of this control group and it's never going to happen. So it's fatalistic, but the reason that I post these up is to put the information out into the field. When I realized that nobody was doing this, and the people that were doing this were subverting toward the whole weaponized, craft-based mechanism of the warlock worshiping the queen, and the queen is actually a perishable idea that had sat at the figurehead or the godhead falsely, and that there may be several on-running experiments that allow sort of an antitoxin to take place in the form of genetic engineering by, we're going to use the term Elohim, but I am not like reducing it or compartmentalizing it into a definite category like that, because these are just names that are given to us. We only have so much information, and the information is so inaccessible to most of us that you would have to sell out completely and then do a complete and total reversal right at the end and be just as, if not more diabolical than the queen herself, which most likely many test batches ago either died off or was killed off or was no longer necessary, because the control group are already automatically, a priori, genetically, it was infused into them that they would believe in such a mechanism or measure. And all you'd have to do is put the religions in place to support the ideology, the ideation, the edict, the edicts. So nothing is as it appears, but it's not so complex that it's infinitely on-running. This is not an infinitely on-running place. It's not an algorithm that can support itself, and that's the whole point. Is that it's the whole point of that time, or the time loop, is that it can only support itself in a disingenuous way for a very short period of time. So there's a looping where the time algorithm is reintroduced over and over again. It's just like when you are editing a video or a song, you can duplicate certain tracks, right, that you like. That's in essence what's happening here. So I could get into how I came into this information, and it's much more expounded upon and in Esoteric Principles of Light.blogspot.com. It becomes the most iconic and most important thing that anybody could ever do, is to realize this information. And at the same time, it's completely superfluous, because there's really most likely nothing that could be done than to continue on with being yourself, and to realize that this this pathos rhetoric sway, this indoctrination, this infiltration and penetration into your very psyche, into your very soul by these very malevolent forces is, in practice, most likely being done by and through the Elohim, but not that they are this evil force, but that they are looking for, again, I'll use this term loosely, the neurotoxin, to ward off and fight away from this infectious disease of what one would term as vanity and the false female mind entering in and toxifying the entire gene pool. Well, we live in that. That's what we live in. We live in a control group that is 100% infiltrated and toxified, killed off, purged, and then a new control group is created. And this could be happening within one shift, like 14 billion years could be going by in one, rationalized 8-hour shift or 3-hour shift, or however the Elohim might break it up with the scientific endeavor of extrapolating data and information that is scrappable because it's just concluding the same outcomes, and they're probably at a level of such high technological wonder and science that they are only garnering a very small portion of new information, but because it's almost like mining for Bitcoin in 30 years from now, right? It's going to yield such little results, but it's going to supposedly be so invaluable. And are these lessons that the Elohim are trying to teach us? Is there a main caveat? Is there a main hidden surprise where there is a potential point that they hope for that would most likely never occur, that total transcendence would occur, and there's a total destroying of all toxic, malevolent, black magic, like a total Pangloss success, a successful experiment that nobody in their right mind would have believed could be true, but proves something that I would love to believe in, but I haven't seen any evidence, and that's the whole point with faith, right? It's not like, from the scientific standpoint, faith looks like a really stupid thing, but not until you get up into these higher levels where you see this zone occurring, this plasma field, where it's like, well, you can't interpret it, you can't know it, it's moving way too fast, and you have absolute hot, you have absolute zero, you have these extremes that you live in this liminal state away from it, but somehow, some way, through this transcendental notion, you are aware of it, and it would take what would be assumably blind faith, just like a double-blind study, right? Where you can't know anything about the operational outcome, but then once you are aligned with it, you've always known. And it creates this paradox where the falsified faux pseudo reality is instantly wiped away, and it validates all the death, and which never really happened, right? Because you're now in alignment with the total truth, the pure principle orientation, and now you have the information to ward it away. And I'd like to believe that is the outcome, and that is the quest, and that all divine aspects of a person are salvageable to an extent that when you get into memetics, I'm not talking about the memetics that I typically refer to, but I'm talking about in a classical sense, where it's like a mimicking, a plagiarizing, a complete and total reproduction, an unnecessary superfluous reproduction of someone that couldn't be self-supported as a divine emanation or a working algorithm in the first place, and that there would be so many derivations to this that in a sense, on the grander scale of things, in the most, like I say, Pangloss and hopeful outlook, is that we would be the inheritors of this information, but it would have to be hard won by our own grit, right? And this isn't like when Cliff High is talking about the Pharisees and Judaism in a very diabolical way, which I do believe very much is happening, but there are so many things that are happening on so many scalable levels. If you were to look up at their tree of life and the cleaving off from the perfection of the six sphere, five golden mean spherical spheres surrounding a center point, you can't ever say that that's just seven, because then you have this phi swirling and swirling out. You have this existential aura that can be considered a one. You have the internal mechanisms that can be considered a one. And to count these all in succession with what I call a left-hand pi-based mathematics is to reduce things down into a flat time signature. And so it identifies you as someone who is either seeing things in this context or not. And then all mathematics that are brought about from supposed phi base are entirely incorrect. But to say that the beauty of the phi or phi perfection, the Fibonacci, the golden mean, doesn't personify and exemplify something amazing, right? That it's not just a lust of aesthetic and the hailing of a sort of perfection that we are drawn to, but that it is purity in its essence that we are truly drawn to, and that takes a tremendous leap of faith in order to finally become that. And once you have become, you have earned that in the highest merits and the highest measures, where you would no longer exist in this place, and this place would most likely purge all memories of it. But what you would be left with is the hard science to keep this from ever happening again.